Good morning, everybody. I want to call to order the November 13th, 2023 meeting of the Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission agenda. We'll first start with the roll call. And why don't we go left to right on my dais? So Commissioner Knight?
Rob Knight, 4th District.
Ronald Nye, at large.
Sheila Snow, 1st District.
Keith Kaufman Gray, 1st District.
Randy Malcolm, 5th District.
Lansing Duncan, 3rd District.
Howard Witosh, 5th District.
Okay, thank you. We have a quorum today. We'll move on to item number 3. It's the minutes from September 11th, 2023. These were all in your packets. Now, as you probably know, these were all done when we were at the Montecito Library. So all of the minutes were done directly off of the recording, so they might seem very wordy. So, so they're probably very accurate, I'm sure. But I know Commissioner Duncan is always good at starting off with the correction of the minutes. So would you like to start today?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And I do want to thank David for providing us with such an extensive set of minutes. But I do notice there's some places where either we missed some words or they were misheard. One is on the very bottom of the first page where we're talking about project discussion and this bridge, and we're trying to determine if it's in Lompoc or in the county. So at the end of the second sentences, they were attempting to determine if it sits within the city, is what we need that to read. They were attempting to determine if it sits, the way it reads right now is sits with city, and it needs to be within the city limits. And then on the top of the second page.
Yes.
Mr. Duncan, which city?
Lompoc.
Okay, so we should say that, I think.
Well, it's very clear about that. Then goes on and says the city of Lompoc. And it's mentioned as the Lompoc River Bridge. I don't think there's any. Within the city limits, I think works fine. But then when we get to the next page, it talks about with the previous determination of National Register of being eligible, or whether I think we need to make that clear. So it should read with the previous determination of being ineligible for the National Registry, because that's the case. Okay. Or whether the commission feels it has the potential to be eligible. Got that? Okay, thanks, Jonathan. And then under district reports, we're talking about the Davison House. It's not Davidson, it's Davison with not a D in the middle, only in the beginning, like my name. Okay. And then on page 3, we're talking here about the repairs to the dam's bridge. And in the second bullet, Steve Windhager reports the dam's repairs have been done. Mr. Imwell's assessment is that there was no damage done. And I think it should read, and that, and we got an extra that there, and that everything was repaired consistent with the Department of Interior's standards. And then under HLAC comments there, Commission compliments the Botanic Garden for their speedy repair work. It needs to read, because that was the aspect of the job that was speedy. And then under number 9, there's a reference in the third bullet about the Moody Sisters Cottage appearing to be in good shape. I believe that's Commissioner Nye, not myself. And I think he said that it was in good shape the last time he saw it and when he saw it using Google Images in 2022.
Is that correct, Commissioner Nye?
Yes.
Okay.
Then going to page 4, under HLAC comments at the bottom on Rancho San Carlos, in the third line, changes to the property would need to come to HLAC. Right now it reads, would need to HLAC for review. It needs to read, would need to come to HLAC for review. Okay. And that's all the things I saw off the first glance. And thanks again to David.
Okay, I found just a few things. On the same page where we were at, under the Moody Sisters Cottage, the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth bullet point, on the word commissioner, it should be, he addressed, it was under Chair Kaufman Gray, it says the second sentence, he addressed public comment that the commissioner has been lenient. I meant commission, not commissioner. And further down, it's also the same way. Unfortunately, in this case, all the material was hauled away. If they rebuild it, would the commission still consider it to be historic, not commissioner? And under 10, Rancho San Carlos as built development plan. The first bullet point, let's see. Though the current owners may be good stewards, future owners may not be. Landmark status would ensure that any changes to the property would need to go to HLAC instead of just to, yeah.
I suggested come to.
Come to, okay, whatever, but it needs, it's not just
Right.
to HLAC. And then the very last thing is our votes. On the last page, the last bullet point, this was our last vote. Commissioner Snow moved, seconded by Commissioner Steinwalks, and carried by a motion of 4, 2, and 2. I believe that 4, it was not being carried. And I guess it was being answered to county council. You know, I think at the time we thought it was carried, but we didn't have enough votes for it to be carried.
Oh, it needs a majority.
There is 8 of us there and 1 absent. So 4 wouldn't have been carried.
I believe it was carried.
That is a carried, a 4, 2, and 2? Okay,
Yes.
okay.
It's a majority.
It's a majority, okay. I just wanted to make sure we get this correct in there.
What might be clearer is if we 4-2-2 or something like that. Because I think everybody understands if there's a third listing, those are abstentions.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Any other corrections for the minutes? Commissioner Nye?
Yes, I have some. I'm wondering if Jonathan could kick up the volume from our speaker system. And maybe it's me or we're not leaning into the mic. Thank you. Yeah. That may be more than anybody wants, but I'm happy with it. So.
I hear you, Ron. I can hear you.
To continue on page 1, on line 3 of the minutes, they determined that land on the side of the bridge, that's a little vague. Lied on. I understand the import of the of what is being said. Do you want to say both sides or on the south side or? Since I wasn't there,
Yeah, he was mentioning just one side and it's the side closest to Lompoc. So I don't know if that's the south side or the west. I mean, I'm not sure geographically, but I know it's the side of the bridge going on to Lompoc.
with the
I don't know if that's the
the
south.
city side or the south side, I don't know.
Maybe city side, just to be safe.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think we could just have it say land on one side of the bridge. Okay. I think once you look at the maps for the details, we can see that. The thing that was important to us, obviously, is whether or not the bridge itself falls within our jurisdiction. And in that respect, the minutes are clear.
Okay, thank you. And that was indeed a minor point.
Okay.
Moving on to page 3, under, let's see, it's the last 3 sentences on the darkened print where it says HLAC comments up in the middle of the page. There, we have corrected the first sentence. The second sentence, the garden has been a good steward of the site. Is that really a necessary or typical statement that we? It may have been somebody's opinion, that's true. It just seems a little over the top to me.
Maybe we should strike it.
Given the arguments we've had with that benefit within the last year, I doesn't sit quite right with me. But I'll move on. That's okay.
I'm just concerned that if it is actually in the minutes that someone said that, it is an HLAC commissioner and this is under HLAC comments, it doesn't mean all of us agreed on the comments.
I'm good with that. Moving down the page to under number 9, Moody Cottage project demolition of the 3rd bullet. Let's see, I think that's already been taken care of. Never mind. Yeah, that was me that said that. Moving on to page 4, the second bullet, last sentence of the second bullet on page 4. Yeah, that'd be number 9, I think.
Hey, Ron, is that the one I have highlighted on the screen?
I have to change glasses. Hold on.
Sorry.
Yes.
Perfect.
That one. What I did say, he also suggested providing a transcript of today's hearing as well as the previous hearing. You could put a period after the word hearing. Or you could say for future reference, but I did not say provide it to the owner. Thank you. Going down on the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4th bullet, the long one that starts out with Chair Kaufman Gray. Starting with the word additionally, towards the bottom of that 4th bullet. Keep going on. Oh, there, yeah. He also believes that the commission should look into what contractor would take on this work without a permit. That's kind of an ambiguous sentence it's difficult to know. I think you were saying it'd be interesting to know what it would cost to demolish or cost to rebuild. What did you have in mind, Mr.?
Okay, let me get back here. It was to look into why a contractor would take on a project to demolish a historic landmark. To me, that they should have asked for a permit for that. So that basically they're doing work without asking the owner of the property for the permit to do the demolish.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think even more important, what contractor would take on a project without first obtaining a permit? Any kind of project. That's the legality.
Well,
the
that
legal-
was what I was saying, because
Okay, okay.
that's besides the owner's fault.
Independent of
There's a
historic.
contractor issue here that actually did the demolish without
Right.
finding out there was a permit for him to work. So that was my idea of that. I mean, it's a possibility that they could go after. So I don't know how to word that.
I don't have a suggestion for that because it's kind of two ideas in one sentence.
Mr. Chair, I think you could write it because I don't really necessarily believe you were asking the commission to look into that. I think you could have it read, he also wondered what contractor would take on this work without a permit.
It's fine. If that's fine with Mr. Chair, that's fine with me.
Yeah, that's fine. It's the point across.
Is that good with Jonathan?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's see. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Any other comments on the minutes?
If not, Mr. Chair, I would move to adopt the minutes of September 11th, 2023 as amended.
Okay.
And I will second.
And we have Commissioner Snow as a second. So all in favor to accept the minutes, say aye.
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 Oppose? Okay, the minutes have been accepted. Thank you. Thank you all for your input on this.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, do we have to take public comment on approval of the minutes?
Pardon me?
We have to do a public comment for the minutes? Anybody of the public would like to?
No, I don't think so. Not for minutes.
I think it's a good idea.
Oh, okay. Is there any public comment for minutes?
Please raise your hand if you are in the chat. Seeing none?
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, staff update. The Planning and Development HLAC staff will provide a brief oral announcement or report on items of general interest to the commission. Do we have any staff updates today?
None from this side.
Okay. No staff updates. We'll move on to item number 5, project discussion. The County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will discuss funding potential historic projects and supplemental letters.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Before you leave our sort of administrative, sometimes you've used that staff update to make your own reports.
Yes, I do.
And there is something I want to report if you don't want to.
Well, yeah, I was planning to report on our current meeting that we had.
Okay.
But anyone, I guess,
Just whatever point in the agenda, I think we
that's what I
should
was
do that.
planning to do. I mean, I'm thinking that we should always have this, like it was worded a few months ago, where when I had a lot of stuff, it said chair project discussion or something, just because sometimes there's things that I want to let the commission know what's going on. Yeah, so what I'm going to discuss real briefly is on November 9th, there was a Zoom meeting with Supervisor Joan Hartman's and her staff, which was Gina Fisher. And then we had Lansing Duncan, Ron Nye, and myself was on that meeting. And it was concerning how projects come to HLAC. So Lansing had been talking with Ms. Fisher about what's been going on as far as projects not coming. We arranged a meeting with Supervisor Joan Hartman, And we had a very, very positive discussion. It was a half-hour meeting that lasted longer than a half hour. I don't want to go into any details, but I just want to say it was very positive. And she's planning to move forward to try to get a solution. I mean, she understands both sides of the story. Planning development is trying to speed the projects through quicker, which we all understand, you know, there's been concern about that. But also our concern that historic landmarks are not being vetted in the construction process, that we're not able to have the input like we used to. So she understands both sides of the stories. I think she's very supportive of us, and she's going to look into ways that possibly we can solve this problem. Does anyone want to chime in on that? I think that's as much as I really should say right now. But I just want everyone to know that it was a very, very positive meeting, more positive than what I originally thought would happen at, you know, the meeting. Okay, so that's the one chair really report that I have this month. The second item that we have under project discussion is Chris Urban is going to be giving our final report on his archiving project. He finished it. And I believe, Chris, you're here, so come on up to the podium, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. So, yeah, final report for this second year of work on the HLAC legacy materials. And the theme was preservation. So I'll just quickly read from my report, because that's really the best way to get the information to you. The Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission has accumulated physical documentation of its activities from 1966 to 2022. Those materials are located in the Hearing Support Office of the County Planning Department. 2 phases of work to organize and preserve those materials have been completed as of the date of this report, which is today. And just to summarize what we've done in the last 2 years, in 2022, last year, the materials of the Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission were physically organized into archival quality housing and intellectually organized into a detailed inventory. This year, 2023, the current project used the information gathered last year to apply preservation treatments to those portions of the materials that were most at risk for deterioration. This year's project also merged materials that had accumulated since last year and placed them into the existing physical collection. Also, previously identified gaps in the record were addressed and filled in. So just a little more detail on what we did this year. The project work just now completed addressed the issues as I mentioned, and I'll just quickly tick through them. So the electronic inventory, this is the intellectual organization of the material. It's really just a glorified spreadsheet. And the physical files were updated with the paperwork accumulated by staff. So for example, documentation from Rocky Nook Park occurred in between the 2 projects. So that was added in both physically, the physical paperwork, and then intellectually into the spreadsheet. And then to the preservation aspects, I found 202 photographs throughout the files, actual photographs as opposed to say photocopied images. And those have all been placed into preservation quality sleeves and returned to where they were found. It's important to have put them into sleeves because what ends up happening over time is the emulsion of the photographs when they're sitting there next to each other over time, they'll eventually fuse together, or you know, if there's moisture that gets in there. So it's just good to do that. There was also newsprint found in the files, newspaper articles that have been clipped out. And then, so what we did to preserve those is they were reformatted, which means we put them on a photocopier. And so we now have a fairly acid-free paper version of them, and put those the original newsprint got put into preservation sleeves, and then so they're co-located now in the files. So we did not get rid of anything. Next item, data. There's data and images that were found inside inside the files. So meaning, you know, I'll find CD-ROMs with photos on them. And well, a lot of times those are kind of consumer grade CD-ROMs, which don't really have a very long lifespan. 10 years is generally accepted length of time. So it's good to get those off of the CD-ROMs onto a new format. Also, there's the aspect of it could be in some older format that's no longer supported. And so we bring them forward in time. And so that's what we did as well with those images. They're now stored on a flash drive. They've been organized into a folder, a file and folder organization. Let's see, what else? So those are both data and images that were found. And then also analog audiovisual materials. So this is magnetic media. So VHS tapes, audio cassette tapes, that were found in the files. They've now been digitized. And then also so now those digital formats have been also placed into this directory folder system on the flash drives. Let's see, so now, so that kind of takes care of the preservation part. I'll talk a little bit about the gaps in the record that I had found last year. So there were 4 properties that I felt were missing data, physical data for the files. I always felt like we needed to have at least like basic paperwork for all of the properties, all Merit landmark properties, HLAC, that have come before HLAC. So the Davison House, which was earlier mentioned, and Hermosillo Road, and Tunnel Brown House, and Glen Oaks Carriage House. Those are the 4 items I had previously not found anything for. And after going through the minutes for both Board of Supervisors and for HLAC, I was able to find materials for those. I actually printed out hard copies because they were only digital, so that at least I have, you know, just a physical representation, a surrogate in the files for those items. So I felt like I had been able to fill in those gaps. And the last item is, it also kind of falls into this category of questions in my mind as an outsider, and maybe there's a gap in the record, was the Foley Estates Vineyard and Winery, which is designated landmark number 45. Last year, I identified it as having some conflicting data around its designation. And so to help clarify that, I dug into the minutes to try and understand really kind of what happened. So basically, I put together a little chronology in order to try and understand that. And so the way it unfolded is the Foley Estates had submitted its vineyard and winery for merit status in June of 2005. And then the next step is HLAC approved those minutes at the August 8th, 2005 meeting. Actually, the approved minutes read, HLAC will nominate Foley Estates as a place of historical merit. The next step, as I found in the chronology, was that per the HLAC resolution of the same date, August 8th, 2005, it was awarded a landmark status for Foley Estates, landmark number 45. So I didn't really find a place where that conversion from merit to landscape occurred, a landmark occurred during the meeting, but it went in as merit, came out as landscape or landmark. So that's about all I could find, which seems perfectly normal to me, or you know, for whatever reasons. Now, the one part about Foley Estates I think I need to bring to your attention is that a search of the Board of Supervisors minutes, which are actually pretty good digital this time in this period of time, 2005, I've never found any kind of evidence that the Board of Supervisors actually codified it or approved the landmark designation, which seemed inconsistent to me. Maybe at some point we don't necessarily go through that hoop anymore, but I just wanted to point it out that it seemed like it got missed. I could be wrong. I could have misread the minutes, but I did a pretty good search multiple times just to make sure I didn't stand up here and embarrass myself today. So that's pretty much it. In my report, last pages also provided you a lovely photo of what these materials look like now organized in archival quality boxes. And also the very last page gave you a sample of what the organization of the digital materials that were reformatted and put on a flash drive now look like. So they've been labeled fairly straightforward, so it'd be fairly easy to find these materials if you were wanting to look at it. And that is the end of my report. Thank you very much for the opportunity to work with these materials. It's extraordinarily interesting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Irvin. Any questions from commissioners? Go ahead, Commissioner Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for doing this great work for us once again. Because obviously having all this in order helps us in so many different ways. Knowing where we're going to be able to find things and what is the reality in some cases, such as Foley Estates. And so I take it when you looked at the Board of Supervisors, then you were looking for the next 90 days after the HLAC had made their resolution to make it a landmark?
I did, but it's fortunately the search engine for the Board of Supervisors minutes are actually looks over several years. So you can look across. You don't have to say, look in chunks based on time-wise. You can look across them all. But I did look at it. I was worried maybe the search engine might be a little off or something. So I did look more carefully, and I did the next 90 days.
You covered that window that we would be concerned about.
Right.
And then one thing I wondered about, I wasn't able to print this easily because I don't print this sort of thing all the time, and I'm going to need some help from staff, I think, in that regard. But I did see there was still a little flag. There were these little triangular, I think they're footnotes. And the one for the Davison House said it was still missing the materials. Is that because it's an old footnote?
Yeah, it probably means I didn't undo the footnote. So I put those footnotes in for myself in order to flag the properties and, as I went through. So that would be an error on my part that I didn't delete the comment.
So we've actually got the physical printouts of all these now. Thank you so much for that. And then, so finally, have you submitted an invoice then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
The county has been fabulous at paying. So.
Okay. So can you tell us what it's for? Nobody's forwarded on to us, so.
Well, the last meeting, there was originally, the $1,000 deposit was to get you started. Then at the last meeting, I mentioned the 1,002. Do you, Jonathan, have that by any chance? It was like 1,200 and something. And then the final invoice just came, and I was going to mention it under budget, and that was $780. And that's the final from October. Where's the dates here?
Might have been dated November 5th, I believe.
Something to today. I think it's from October 1st to today. It was like the final invoice for $780. So we're looking at $1,000 to like $3,000 for the period.
I think it's about 2,700. And I apologize,
yeah.
I misunderstood your question.
Not a problem. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to have some questions for staff.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, one, Jonathan, you understand everything Mr. Irvin is saying, and you know where to find all these things should you have to go looking for them.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. And then could you print up, at least for myself, I don't know for the other commissioners, this spreadsheet, at least the section which deals with landmarks and places of merit?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
That way we would have it as a reference, and it's now an up-to-date version as Mr. Urban has pointed out with the latest information. That would be very valuable. And then question for Ms. Ryerson. Since we found out that the Board of Supervisors did not act on Foley Estates, should we now revise our records and have it show that it is a place of historic merit? Because obviously our resolution, even though it was for landmark, and it was the practice in those days to actually make properties first historic merit and then landmark. That was the process that was used. So it's not unusual there. But nowadays, we really sort of need to make it revert back to historic merit on our records.
I will have to review the resolution and get back to you on that.
Okay, but normally our resolution would lapse after 90 days if the Board of Supervisors doesn't pick it up.
Well, maybe we can look into see, maybe it was, and it's just been missed as far as being recorded or.
And anyway, since he's cleared up the mystery as far as he can see with the evidence he has, then we need to act on it, I would say.
Oh, definitely. I think that's very important. That's why
Yeah.
referring it to county council to look into that is great.
Thanks again to Mr. Urban.
Okay, who, any other questions, Sir Chris Irvin? Or comments or?
I have questions or comments, both for Mr. Irvin. And we got regarding the Foley Estates, if indeed it's not a landmark, then we intended it to be, so we ought to move on that. Providing we don't skip any major processes in between. So yeah, it'd be great if we looked into that more further. Thank you for your great work once again. Really appreciate this. As far as I don't recall the exact description of your work order. Were you able to dive into any of the digital files that were being stored, digital project files that were, separately stored on staff computers to see what was available to add to our archive? Or does that go without saying? I forgot how we left that.
So I don't have access to staff computers or data. What I have access to is what's on the website. It's for HLAC, it's HLAC's minutes that are published, and then also the Board of Supervisors minutes, which are published separately on the county's websites. So that's the extent of, and so maybe the question is, did I find any project files in the hard copy files that have been organized? And not really, other than, what was printed. So what's printed is the resolutions, for example, any of the materials that were gathered, research reports, photographs, the news clippings, any of the supporting data that goes into making, HLAC making the decision about a property. But as far as materials that come from staff, those I don't, other than what I've already described, there's nothing additional.
Because I had a pet theory that the reason some of these properties didn't have much in the hard files was that hard copy files was that the county staff went on kind of a digital phase where they were not valuing retention of hard copies. And I'm just wondering if that may have been a source if you had been allowed to look there, or if somebody looks there. I'm thinking of like our previous staff person who had 2 computers on her desk and was a whiz, and she had stuff filed all over the place and she had really careful control over it. But I don't know how much of that ever was ever printed or beyond what was handed to us as commissioners.
I didn't see really anything like that. Hopefully county, keeps a copy of employee computers for some period of time. But what I really saw, Ron, over the course of looking at the materials is that as the materials come forward in time and, we transition from pre-computer era into the computer era into the county actually becoming pretty well digitized and automated, is that the hard copies starts to get thinner and thinner and thinner because of the reliance on everything just being born digital. It just goes right into the computer. So it's actually pretty natural to see that petering out of physical paper. And even in the reports, research reports that are delivered, a lot of times I believe those just show up as PDFs these days. And unless somebody shows up with a hard copy and then it got handed off to staff and got put near a box or something, a lot of times those may not even ever, they're still just all digital. Hope I answered your question.
Well, yes, you did. Well, since you were able to add information and documents to 4 of our properties, of our designated properties, Davidson, Hermosillo, Tunnel Brown, et cetera, which is all to the good. There could be other stuff that hasn't been
Yes, yeah, they're
accounted for and is not, we don't know if we have something or not yeah, so.
Right. No, you're right. You could, but I worked with what I found
Right,
and what time would permit. So
okay,
when I printed out those little, the evidence for those 4 properties, it was you might say it was just more for closure on my part.
right.
Instead of having an empty file in the archival box, now we have a file that's got at least, major, the major piece of paperwork, which is like the resolution from HLAC. So.
Well, it seems like we ought to look into at some point another project for you that would help us see what we actually have electronically.
Right.
And having to work with staff, obviously, because when a question comes up about project like Moody Cottage, for example, there could be anything sitting there electronically that we don't know about if it's nobody looks for it.
It would be a very involved project, a lot of time required, and that's if the materials, the digital materials can be found. And, we would have to dig into, what's the county IT's process for maintaining backups of past employees' computers. And as you get further and further forward in time, those backups probably start to drop off the proverbial cliff because they're just too old and no one's asked for them. And so anyway, I guess my message is the sooner the better
Oh,
for digital materials because IT organizations don't tend to keep them forever.
all right. Well, thank you for doing this and if there's an image that sends me heaven bound is this wonderful photo of all those boxes. That just, I don't know. I know I'm weird, but that is one organized bunch of stuff and you can find it.
The real beauty of it is you can walk right to a box, open it up and pull out the materials right now, after looking at the spreadsheet.
We should have a before picture. To put
Yeah.
next.
I believe that's called a sight for sore eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it.
okay. Any other commissioner questions?
Mr. Chair, so just clarification, that we just saw an invoice on the screen. Okay, and then in addition to that, there was a $1,000 deposit.
Yeah, and when we get to the budget, because I have a question when we get to the budget, because the budget sheet has the 1,235, but it doesn't include the 1,000 deposit.
Because that's actually earlier.
But it should be a cumulative amount.
Well, did it actually go in last year's?
No, we were not allowed to, remember, we didn't have the money, so we had to start, that's why we had to not start till July 1st on this project.
Uh-huh.
So when we get to the budget, we'll have to find out why that. And then, of course, the 780 isn't on there because that's this current month. It was just paid this week, last week.
For this project too?
Yeah.
This 780
The 780
was
is
an
the
additional charge?
is the final charge,
Correct.
which
Okay.
I just
Okay.
approved, and it sounds like you already got it. Or it's on its way, I know. I
It's
approved.
probably on its way.
Okay, thank you.
I believe the total expenditure by HLAC on this project was around 2,700. So it was under 3,000.
Then for staff, do we need to make a motion of some sort to get Mr. Urban paid?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Villalobos emailed me, said, do you want to wait till after the presentation? And it was like last week, and I just said, no, just go ahead and pay it. So he went ahead and processed it. Maybe I should have waited. Any other questions? Comments?
Well, I have. As simple as this is, I managed to mess it up already. It's either on or off.
It's hard to say. You have to kind of look at your mic.
You know,
Look at your mic. You're on.
just thank you for chasing down, doing a little research because it's always good for the soul. So appreciate that.
Okay, Mr. Ritosh?
I would like to echo Dr. Nye's thoughts on of appreciation and excellence in work. I also think there's another aspect to this, especially with regard to the Moody Sisters Cottage and other projects, is that we need this kind of backup in our files for legal purposes, especially who said what to whom, when did they say it, when did they know, and that kind of thing. It's unfortunate to have to add that aspect to this, but having the information would be very helpful in moving forward on some of these projects that require action from us. So thank you again.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. Again, I just want to finalize. Thank you, Mr. Irvin. I mean, what we have now is just amazing compared to what it was a couple of years ago. When Ron showed me the files just stacked and stacked, and it's like, okay, where's this, where's that? I bet we're probably the most organized commission in the county right now. And thank you, Mr. Irvin, for doing all this work for us, because finding someone that can do that is not easy. And so we really appreciate that. And we have one more comment here. Commissioner Malcolm.
Just a question for staff or clarification. Moving forward, though, is there a protocol or process in place? I'm assuming Jonathan would take care of it. I don't know if there's anyone else that's designated to file stuff or, but anything from that point forward that Chris did that needs to be put into these files? Is there a protocol that some staff member knows whenever we have something new that's where it goes?
Yes, whenever there's a new resolution or landmark and merit that happens, we follow this organization.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we have that spreadsheet now, and I think it's up to probably me to make sure it's happening, you know, or whoever the chair is in the future. You know, because we will have new staff members, but it is important, like you're saying. It will have this perfect file system, and then if we don't use what we have now, it's going to revert to what we had before going from here on. So we've got to keep this up. And thank you for mentioning that because it is so important.
And I just did want to add as well, I did take a look at the box files for our Historical Landmarks Advisory Commission. There are digital submittals, looks like dating back to 2016 that are inside box. So we could possibly pull those up and maybe get a spreadsheet for Mr. Irvin next time he does that.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, well, we need to move on. So thank you again very much. Okay, our next item is the budget. We all received the budget, and as mentioned in the last item, if you look under professional services, you see the 1,235, and that is what was on the screen earlier. What my concern was, I don't see the 1,000 deposit that was given, and it should be under that line because we didn't start this project till the new fiscal year. And like I said, there is another 780, which would be for next month's, budget analysis, which is not on this form, that was just paid. So if you add 1,235, 1,780, that is the total for this project that was done. You know, concerns we need to always look at, of course, is staff support. We're already at 49%, and at this time, it's only 25% of the budget time has passed. So that's something we all have discussed in the past, and we'll continue. I'll continue to work with when they work on the next budget, because it's too late for this budget, to try to do something to make sure that. As we've talked about, I'm not going to go forward on this now and talk about it now, but we all know that we're looking at the same budget line cost for a staff since 2011 at least, and we all know costs have gone up since then. Any questions on this budget? Okay, we don't need to approve it. It's just an ongoing thing. So we'll move on if any have no questions on the budget. Oh, well, before I forget and we move on, everyone received a mileage chart. Remember at the beginning of the year, I said that we used to always report our mileage for the end of the full year. It's every 3 months now. So there was the first was June, July, and August. And now September, October, November. So you can, if you have not done anything, you can put them all on the same sheet, but we want to try to do this every 3 months. So, go back, it's your parking, or paying for parking if we're at a meeting right now. And it's also your mileage to and from your house to wherever the meeting is. People that live in North County that drive a lot, it's important that you do this every 3 months. So we'll get an idea how our budget is going. And remember, when you do submit your mileage from your house, you do a Google search, and Jonathan needs that. It's not just look at your odometer and write it down. Just do a Google search, put in your address, put in the address of here, and it will tell you exactly what it is. And then send that to Jonathan, either print it out, or do you just like a printout of it and send it to you? Best.
Well, usually, if you can get the odometer, you don't have to carry the Google Doc or the document that says that you travel from this distance. I can provide that. I would just need what Google Maps says.
Oh, okay.
The mileage.
I thought you actually had to have that. Okay. Okay, so that's all I wanted to mention. Just keep up on your mileage and everything. And if you have anything today, it looks like some people were filling stuff out, you can turn it into Jonathan today.
Well, clarify, it's October, November, December, correct?
July, August,
says,
September,
uh,
October.
it
Oh,
says
I'm sorry. Yes, it is through
2023.
December. So the third quarter ends at the end of December. But we did have that meeting in Santa Maria, so, and that was in July, August,
August.
August. So that was the
August
first third
14th.
quarter. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's move on to our standard agenda. Item number 8 is the Coral Casino alterations. The County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will review and may approve the as-built installation of a new cool spa, revised shape of an existing spa, excuse me, installation of a portable courtyard reflecting pool water feature, and repair of millwork and bar equipment damaged by water at the Coral Cafe Bar. HLAC will also determine the project is exempt from California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, pursuant of Section 15301 of the state guidelines for implementation of CEQA. So we have some of the people here from Coral Casino. So if you'd like to start, is there any ex parte visits or anything for this project from commissioners that we need to notice?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
do we have a staff person here?
the planner
We
is
have
he
Kevin
online?
online right now.
Yeah, good. Okay, we have a planner online. Sure, planner, would you, Kevin, it's Kevin De Los Santos. Kevin, would you like to speak on this project first?
Yeah, I heard you mention that the applicant team is there. It seems like it's a pretty minor project. I don't have any further comments right now, other than what's on the planner memo, but I am available for questions or concerns to be addressed.
Any questions? Too?
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Duncan.
So what I'm wondering about, I can understand that they came to the county for a substantial conformity determination to allow these relatively minor changes. But what I'm wondering about is why that didn't trigger them coming to HLAC, because this is a county landmark.
I guess maybe I'm not understanding the question. This is the HLAC meeting that they're coming for. The additions they did were unpermitted, and so they're coming in now for an as-built substantial conformity determination and associated land use permit.
Well, that's part of my question too. Why are we looking at this as an as-built after the work has already been done?
Are you saying that because they did it unpermitted that you would not want to see it before your commission?
Who's indicated that this shouldn't come before the commission?
The staff never gave the applicant permission to do these as-built additions. That's why they're labeled as as-built, because they were completed without
There was
permits.
no application for a permit. That's why.
Yeah. So we just got what appears to be an answer from a commissioner, but is it because we didn't trigger the normal process that would have established the threshold that brought it to us? I'm simply pointing out that it seems like this is an error in the processing if something like this doesn't come to us, even though it is minor. I don't see on the resolution, and this is obviously between us and staff, not the Coral Casino at this point in time, but I don't see, on the resolution for the Coral Casino, some special exclusion, but maybe this is something that applies to all landmarks that we need a better understanding of. Okay, thank you. And then there is one aspect that's in the information that's provided to us that I wondered about, and that is we've got a letter from Architectural Resources Group about the previous projects that we looked at, and we did look at in those cases, and it speaks all about those projects and how thoroughly they were done and carefully monitored and tracked. But I just want to make sure this doesn't apply to the current project because they were looking at what we had actually reviewed. Correct?
So the Architectural Resources Group letter speaks to them doing compliance visits in the field. And I believe they list the Coral Cafe repair and maintenance bar and the jacuzzi spa and enlargement within this memo or protocol plan compliance letter. So that's what I'm hoping that the applicant team can speak to if they can, answer those questions. If, the Architectural Resources Group reviewed these as-built changes in the field.
Okay. The one thing I am wondering about is on this letter, it does mention the Coral Cafe, repair and maintenance in-kind replacement of non-historic millwork at the bar and back bar. So is this the repair that occurred as part of the substantial conformity, or is this the repair that was part of the previously approved project?
This is part of the substantial conformity determination. This was not reviewed as part of the prior projects approved, I think, in 2020 or 2021.
Okay, so this part of the letter does apply to what we're looking at today.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions to staff? Okay, let's move on with the report from the applicants that are in here present today.
I'm basically here just to answer questions. The pool and the kiddie pool, the spa and the kiddie pool basically did this. It just switched. The kiddie pool moved to where the spa was, and the spa moved where the kiddie pool was. And shape of the spa changed from a rectangular shape to just kind of a radius shape. And that's what we did. And then we added a cool pool right alongside of it, a 45-degree cool pool alongside the spa, so you could jump between the spa and the cool pool. So they're all within 4 or 5 feet of where they originally were. So.
Sorry, apologies. Would you mind introducing yourself
Question
in
right
relation
now,
to the
but
project?
we're confused because is this part of the project that we approved in 2020, that what you're talking about, or is this something that was decided after what we approved? Because I'm a little confused of what we're looking at right now. I remember what we approved.
Chairman and Commissioners, Bill Medell representing the Coral Casino Beach and Cabana Club. It was approved originally, the location of the spa and the shower, outdoor shower, and the kiddie pool. Kiddie pool remained in place. The spa was moved a few feet closer to the seawall for more ample views of the breaking water and waves. The shower where it was originally approved was by the outdoor beach stairway. The owner wanted to move it closer away from the vertical that was blocking a sight from cabanas and people sitting and looking out towards the ocean. So that the outdoor shower was moved about maybe 10 feet to the east. And again, the spa was moved maybe 4 or 5 feet closer to the seawall. And then subsequently, the owner wanted to install a cold plunge right next to the spa, so you could dip into cold water and then back into the spa. So they did not impact any of the historic fabric of the original of the Coral Casino. It was just moved on site during the construction. And we apologize for not coming before and getting the permits, but we were under the gun to try to get this club open as quickly as possible. So now that's why we're here before you to approve these adjustments that we made in the field.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for those clarifications. So the cool pool was something new and additional. The other thing in looking through the documents was there's some sort of water feature that's added to the pool. Is this sort of spraying fountain thing? I saw there was all this piping that was involved in it.
No, there's a portable, it's a stainless steel water feature that's got like absolute tile in it. It's a self-contained unit.
Mhm.
That's sitting on the deck. We can pick it up and move it around like it's a stainless steel portable unit.
Okay. Uh, I'll wait till we have some comments, Mr. Chair, and then I'll have some.
We're kind of in comments or questions because they don't really have a formal presentation for us. So it's just the packet that was given to us,
And
which I'm afraid, for me personally, it's very hard to read the drawings without having things up on a screen that you can see it. I mean, that's just me personally.
well, it's not you personally, Mr. Chair. I would just, and this is for staff's benefit, it would have been so much easier to simply have a detailed verbal description of what was done, what was changed, and then some good before and after pictures. Those serve us immensely well in terms, but having to wade through just piles and piles of plans, which may be the regular format, drown us in plans, doesn't provide us with very good information. Okay. And then we could have a much better understanding of, well, this is what it looked like before, this is what's different. Because these are just full of details that we do not need to know. Yeah. And it's a waste of paper, unfortunately. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? I mean, questions? We're
Questions?
in
Yes.
questions areas, I guess. Go ahead, Commissioner.
So I just want to be clear. I always want to be clear. So this project, elements of this project were approved previously by us. And they, in the process of building, they got a permit for that. And in the process of building, they made a few minor changes, called these field changes, and they added the cool pool. Is that what they did? That was not approved, but it was added during construction. This is a question, not a comment.
Yeah, let's ask the planner to answer that because
Ye-
that's our questions.
Yes, that's an accurate description of the project here.
Okay, okay. And so these have been built and they have come to us after the fact to approve these field changes. That's where we are with this.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to be clear.
Commissioner Malcolm is next.
Jonathan?
I'm a bit unclear on to the replacement wood siding. It says something about redwood siding catalog tracking. Now, is that from a different company or is it from from what was taken from the Coral Casino before and archived for later use? Or where's this replacement redwood coming from specifically? I'm kind of unclear.
We don't even know who to ask that question to. The planner, or would you like to answer that question?
I would direct that question to the applicant. I'm not sure.
So I'll try to go back in history and time. Back in 2005, when the rehabilitation of the Coral Casino was approved by the Landmarks Committee, one of the conditions were that we were to assign a historic architect, I guess, or preservation architect, which was David Wessel, preservation architectural firm, Architectural Resources Group, I guess they're called. And at that time, Mr. Wessel provided a protocol for that construction of the project. So anything that we've always brought before this commission for any kind of a repair or maintenance, contractors, subcontractors had to follow that protocol plan. And so what we did is we engaged Mr. Wessel one more time for this project to come out and make sure that we were following the protocol plan, we were in compliance, and that the siding had been documented, any siding that had been removed, documented, photographed, and if it could be either reattached or reinstalled. If not, it was replaced by redwood, which was the historic wood that was used originally to build the Court Casino. So that's kind of where we're at today.
Okay, but the replacement redwood, does that come from those Coral Casino archives, or is that from a different source altogether?
It had to be from a different source because the original could not be duplicated or replaced in
Okay.
kind as it was being removed
Okay,
because of water damage and termite,
Right.
things like that.
so there's nothing in the Coral Casino archives that were used as a replacement redwood for,
Right.
there was, okay, great, thank you. That clears up that question. I had one more. Okay, as far as the protocol plan, and forgive me, I do not remember specifically what that is, and it'd be nice to have a copy of it to refer to. And it says that the Landmark Commission approved it, and I guess I don't remember approving it or not. Can we get a copy of that protocol?
Be a question to county staff, the planner.
Yeah, I submitted that preservation protocol as part of this package to be displayed today. I can forward copies by email or get you printouts if need be.
Yeah, it needs to be, thanks.
Hey, Kevin, is it any of these files that are open currently?
I cannot see off my Zoom webpage. There's a title block in front of this, but I can go back and look at the folder.
Mr. Chair, and
Yes.
Commissioner Malcolm,
Go right ahead.
back in the 2005 approvals and rehabilitation, we could not start construction or rehabilitation until this protocol was submitted to the county. So the county has had it in their records since that time.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
And I believe I have it on the screen now.
Okay. Okay, that's the letter that we have in our packet. It's dated from September 2023.
Yeah, we got the letter. It's
Yeah,
just the protocol itself, the written instructions. It'd just be helpful to have it in front of us as we're reviewing what's going on here.
Commissioner Nye, you have your mic on. Did you want to say anything?
I was just asking for Jonathan to put some site plans on. But this is kind of a difficult situation, once again, because the information that we have is not sufficient to do what we're being asked to do. And I did see that we had approved a protocol on August 10th, 2020. But as has been said, I did the standard, the easiest thing here would have been to see some site photographs of what was installed, and kind of, as Mr. Duncan said, before and after, because what we're being asked to comment on are not necessarily historic materials or features of high impact to the history of that facility. However, we don't have any documentation of that, aside from the architectural drawings that we were given. And in a facility like the Coral Casino, visual is the whole ball of wax up there. Is how do these new items fit in the overall scheme and architectural presentation of the facility? And I have the feeling that they're probably not a problem, but based on what we have, we can't know one way or another how to make that call. So here we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nye. I guess let's move on just to comments. Public comment first. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this item?
Seeing none, and we have got no request to speak on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. So let's do comments. I mean, we do actually have an action item here it's the HLAC will review and may approve the as-built installations. So let's do public comments. So let's do comments from commissioners on this. Who would like to start?
I got another clarification question if it's.
Sure, go ahead, Commissioner Malcolm.
Where is it? Just had it. The portable courtyard reflecting pool water feature. That's a new concept for me on this. What did it replace, or is it in place right now? And if so, what did it replace?
I would also direct that question to the applicant team.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Malcolm, the reflection pool is over to the north side of the courtyard. If you can move your cursor way over to your right, that little rectangle area in the center, right there. That's a courtyard that used to be used for ping pong and foosball and things like that. We have seating around that area. Right there is where the reflection pool, it's probably 8 inches deep. It sits in a self-contained stainless steel container. We've added a pump to it so that there's a fountain right in the center. It's kind of creates a little white water noise for members that sit there, read a book, or on their cell phones and things like that. So that's called the reflection pool. So that's the one thing that you see here on this report that you're asking about. It's close to the Finn's pool bar, which is a little bit there to the left, right below the big arrow, black arrow. So the Finn's pool bar allows people to come in this area to sit and have their coffee in the mornings and juices and healthy drinks like that. So we created this portable reflection pool there for them. And then if you pull up the big side again, Jonathan. Okay, if you scroll, if you put your cursor down to the lower, towards the end of the big pool, to the left, down below, keep going. There's the spa. The spa originally, as the commission had approved, was a little bit to the right. Same location, but a little bit to the right. Can you put the cursor on the spa there? Okay, it was a little bit to the right of that. We moved it closer to the seawall. The outdoor shower was, if you go a little bit down further by the stairway, right there. That was the approved site for the outdoor shower, and it stood almost 7 feet tall. And if you're from the pool deck area and the cabanas on the east or north side, we thought that that was an intrusion of a view. So we moved it down further to seawall to the east, keep going down below, right in that corner, right there. So those were the 3 changes that we made.
Thank you. Any other questions? We move to comments?
Mr.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Duncan.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And I think that could have been done on one simple diagram that would have saved us a lot of time. Because instead, we were given 30 or 40 sheets of detailed plans that did not speak to what it was we needed to know about. So my comments are, it would be really helpful if staff could bring us the information that we need to do what we need to do, as Commissioner Nye pointed out. And the other thing is, it would be very helpful if it would occurred in a timely manner. I can understand why you don't want to open a whole nother can of worms by coming back here again, but then it might have been simpler to explain it at that point in time than to explain it after the fact. So my comment is really, first, HLAC is definitely prefers it. It's a lot easier for us to do our job protecting historic resources when people come to us first rather than after the fact. And we need to make sure that whatever system is in place to feed things to us recognizes that. Then I think based upon what we've been told, these are not items and changes that dramatically affect the historic resource. It would be easier to confirm that if we had simple, clear documentation. But I think based upon what we've heard today and seen explained to us, we can do that. I don't think we should attempt to reopen our entire previous consideration and approval that was given. And in fact, it was done with a very serious protocol plan. And I really did appreciate the letter from the historian who is monitoring the protocol plan. And having worked with antique restoration, I know exactly what they're talking about in terms of milling the wood and then providing a finish on it, which mimics the older redwood, which has obviously been there for a while and was cut in a particular way. How the saw blade interacts with the grain gives you a particular pattern that is very difficult to reproduce in any other way. And these are just the sort of features, the character defining features that are important for us with things like the Coral Casino with such a remarkable structure. So my comment is that at this point, I'd be okay going ahead and improving the as-built, just with the notation that in the future, it'd be nice to get this before instead of afterwards.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Duncan.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Butosh, would you like to do your comments now?
I agree with Commissioner Duncan 100%. And the only thing that I would add is I'm prepared to approve these changes as built. They're consistent with the protocol, and they are in keeping with the existing building. But I would like to get photographs for the record. We have plans. We were given more than we need, but we were not given not enough. We were not given the essential thing, which is the visuals. So if we just ask the applicant to take documentation and photos and send those to us in file for the file, that would be okay with me.
Okay, who would like to go next? Commissioner Nye, looks like you're leaning towards the mic.
I agree with the comments of Commissioners Duncan and Witosh, and I encourage us to approve this project with the proviso that the owner forward some documentation of these changes for our files. Thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments? Okay, I just want to chime in at the end here. Again, I think with all of us, we're very disappointed that we really didn't have clarification on this project as far as a presentation like we expect to have. And as it was mentioned many times, the photographs of what we're looking at, what it was before and what it is after. And that's something we always used to get. And lately, we've been having problems with projects coming to us that we're kind of in the blind. I mean, we just get a bunch of documents of architectural, but not really photographs that we can see. So this is not the applicant's fault. I think it's planning development. The people assigned, we should be a little more, they should give us more information before a project comes before us, because I think all of us are kind of like, what was this? You know, we now have kind of clarification, but you know, we kind of understand that this is minor alterations to what we originally approved. But wouldn't have taken this long today for us to approve it if we had the proper photographs and documentations and presentation at the beginning. So I agree with my fellow commissioners that, you know, we should approve this as built, because it is minor alterations. And I do think we should add in, whoever does the motion, to make sure we have pictures of the before and after of these alterations for the files. So is anyone here would like to do the a motion?
Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead, Commissioner Duncan.
Thank you. I would move that the HLAC approve the as-built installation with the installation of a new cool spa, revised shape of an existing spa, installation of a portable courtyard reflecting pool water feature, repair of millwork and bar equipment damaged by water at the Coral Cafe bar. And we also heard that the location of the outdoor shower was moved. With the condition that the applicant provide us with some documentation and just a clear verbal statement of what was done, and outlining which things were changes from the originally approved plan. And then also to find that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to section 15301 of the state guidelines for implementation of CEQA.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Witosh seconds. So we'll just do a voice vote. All in favor to approve this, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Okay. Me. Oh, we have one abstention. I'm sorry, Commissioner Malcolm. So we have one abstention. You could record that, Ann? Okay, we'll move on. Okay, let's move on to item number 9. This is the Caltrans Lompoc Capital Preventive Maintenance San Ynez River Bridge Replacement Project. The County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will review and vote whether it agrees with Caltrans' determination that the bridge is ineligible for the National Register of Historic Places. The bridge is designated as Caltrans Bridge number 51-0128 in the San Ynez area, and it's in the 4th Supervisorial District. And I believe we have the applicants online. They're going to do a presentation.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Ronenberg. I'm the environmental coordinator for the project. And Hannah Ehrlich is also here. I don't have a prepared presentation. I don't know if Hannah had anything to present. Dan is unable to make it today, so we're filling in for him.
Okay, yeah, I understood that he might not make it today. So, well, thank you for coming, waiting and being here for us. All the commissioners should have, the pictures that are up above, we received all of that 2 months ago at our meeting. So everyone should have the pictures of the bridge. Jonathan, if you could pull up the photographs of the bridge. I think those are, yeah, that's the current bridge. So that, I think that's the important visual for us to look at. You know, we had questions in the past about whether it's in the city of Lompoc or is it in county, and Daniel had answered that question that the bridge itself is in the county, and that's why it's coming before us for this determination. He also had sent me a huge packet on bridges from 1936 to 1959. I gave that to be distributed to everybody because bridges determination for historic landmarks are different than rather other historic landmarks, and they have two criterias that they look at, and that's criteria A and criteria C, which is in that packet. In the first couple of pages, it describes what those are. So I'm just giving you an overview. So we first, I guess, any ex partes for any site visits on this bridge before we get started? Okay. And I guess we'll ask questions about this too. We do have the Caltrans, you know, to answer questions for us. So why don't we start with questions?
May I
Yes,
ask
go
a
right ahead.
question? Didn't at least two of our people from the commission visit this bridge? Or have I got the wrong bridge?
No, that was the Alamo Pintado Bridge.
Oh,
I believe the one commissioner who's not here today lives nearby, Ms. Steinwatch, Commissioner Steinwatch, and I think she mentioned that she visited it. As you probably all know, you know, Caltrans does these initial feelers way early in a project. This is a project that probably will be many, many years down the road before it's finally built, but they first want to make sure that they have all the, you know, historical part taken care of at the beginning of the project.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, just in order to have a better understanding of the creature we're looking at, and I can see the pictures, but actually the next sheet we have that was provided with this, which there you go, that's the one I want to look at. Can you blow that up a little bit? Hey, thank you. Could we have the representative from Caltrans explain to us a little bit about what this is telling us?
Hannah, yeah, go ahead, Hannah.
Yeah.
Oh, Dan just popped on too.
Oh, perfect. Okay, Dan might be able to answer this better, but it was built in 1939. Dan, they just asked kind of what this information is telling us and how that's important. I don't know. You might be able to answer this better than me.
Dan, I'm not sure if you're able to hear this, but they're asking for details about the bridge. Yeah, and this just demonstrate or just talks about how the structure was built, the components of it, the year, and I believe the year was what was in question for this analysis because it's a 50-year-old bridge.
Hey guys, yeah, sorry, I was having a little trouble with my microphone for whatever reason on the Zoom. Yeah, so essentially, the bridge itself has been previously determined ineligible. Yeah, it's within that 50-year threshold where we begin to consider a structure as potentially eligible for the National Register. But this bridge was evaluated, I believe, in the early 2000s, if not back in the 80s, and has been, you know, a known quantity to us for quite a while now. It's not an eligible bridge. So the reason that we are reaching out is because this is a removal project, Though we completely agree with our prior determinations, it's my professional opinion this bridge would not meet the requirements eligible for the National Register. We are required due to its removal to, seek comment from any interested parties. Obviously, the commissioners being at the top of that list.
Okay, looking specifically at this page, can you see this, Mr. Leckie?
Yes, yeah, I can see it.
Okay, and thank you for the very interesting survey. That's a lot of information, and I did find out a bit about bridges. So in order to understand what this is telling us, I'm looking down under structure description, 7-span CIP RC. I figure RC is reinforced concrete.
Yeah, it's cast in place reinforced concrete.
Okay, that's what we're talking about. That's what the deck is. That's what we actually drive on. And it's sitting on top of these continuous, and that in itself is sort of a technological advance, but a lot of bridges did that. And then they're riveted steel girders. So this is before they started welding them. So that makes it a little older, right?
Right. So, obviously these methods kind of, overlapped over time. But riveted steel would not have been, necessarily like this isn't a new or like pioneering example of a riveted steel bridge. And the fact that it's a girder bridge, it's a pretty commonplace. It's one of our more common bridge types. So for those reasons, it's not really considered to be an excellent example of this bridge type based either on its age or its its size or engineering. There's in our opinion, there's nothing particularly noteworthy about any of that.
And then it sits on reinforced concrete piers on timber piles. So
yeah, I think there's like 4 or 5 piers.
Yeah. So you've told us what we thought was a charming old bridge. It's really rather regular. And so I think all that stuff is addressed towards the potential for criteria C. So I'm looking back at criteria A, which would be about, how this fits into our history, or especially our transit history or development. And so what I would wonder about there in the area this is has staff considered what this bridge, what importance it might have had for the development of Vandenberg Air Force Base? Because certainly, although this doesn't necessarily lead directly to Vandenberg, or it's not the only way you can get to Vandenberg, the whole Lompoc community and its economic development is tied up with Vandenberg. And this bridge obviously had something to do with that. Have you guys considered that at all?
So the basically this bridge, its determination comes from a multiple property submission. So what the methodology that's been created is basically in a statewide sort of historic context, that it wouldn't have looked at something so specific as the bridges potentially, to be honest, I'm going to call that tangential relationship to the Vandenberg. It's a very specific historic context that would not have been looked at previously, because it's based on methodology from sort of a statewide context. But this is part of the state highway system. It's not part of Vandenberg Air Force Base, though they're somewhat co-located. I mean, then you would be kind of you could assess the importance of any piece of infrastructure in Lompoc and say it has some tangential relationship to Vandenberg, right? I don't know. I don't see that as a whole in the evaluation personally.
Well, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, we have a question from Commissioner Malcolm.
Question about the name Robinson Bridge. Is there any historical significance to the name Robinson?
I could not find it. I don't know who Robinson is. To me, it's the Santa Ynez River Bridge, but um, Jen, do you know where the name Robinson comes from?
Yeah, no, I do not.
Yeah, that's kind of a confusing point. At first, it was referred to me as the Robinson Bridge, but to me, it's just the Santa Ynez River Bridge. And so again, under criterion A, the things that we'd typically be looking at for a bridge like this would be if it was like the first crossing of the river, which I don't believe that it is. I'm pretty sure there was a bridge there prior to this one that maybe had been destroyed by a flood or a storm. So yeah, I don't see the criterion A significance. You know, we have so many bridges statewide, literally thousands of bridges within our system that, you know, a 1939 steel girder bridge is typically not gonna, you know, but again, this is up for you guys, you know, to vote on and what your opinion is. Basically, you know, I don't see this bridge as being potentially eligible, but basically the outcome of what you guys will determine is you know what your opinion is, and you know, I guess what we have to do compliance wise, we'd have to go back to the SHPO. I mean, they looked at this bridge 2 years ago and said it was ineligible, but we would take a closer look at it.
Okay, Commissioner
It's
Whittosh.
it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Thank you. Commissioner Whittosh, you have a,
Yeah, I would just like to comment on the report, which I found quite interesting historically and also from an engineering perspective. I am curious about when you say riveted steel girders, 1939, as opposed to welded steel girders. So, and the fact that these girders system is a continuous system. It says no hinges, or where does it say? No, end spans are cantilevered. So my understanding of continuous is a kind of an early development in structural engineering, whereby by not hinging each span, one was able to get greater stiffness by joining each segment, each span in a continuous beam. And that the trusses were used to brace these deep girders to keep them from wiggling when they became unstable because of the long spans. So I don't know that this is the ineligibility of this bridge. The criteria is as the investigation into that is as thorough as it should be. If this were a simple span where you had 5 simple spans and there was an abutment wall at each end, that would be something very simple, but engineering wise. But this is actually a kind of a hybrid engineering project in that it has a continuous, these girders are continuous, and the fact that they cantilever so that there is no need for an abutment wall, which is, I assume that's the way it is at the moment. I don't have a picture here, but I would like to know whether anyone looked at that as a criterion for its determining that it was ineligible. Those are my question.
So the ineligibility determination is based on sort of a quantitative process, which looks at, thank you for scrolling back up to the bridge, which looks at several different aspects of the bridge. Overall architectural treatments is one thing. I mean, this bridge is a pretty standard railing type. You see that all over the state for structures of this age. It looks at the engineering, so this bridge is a girder bridge. Yeah, it's riveted and continuous, but a girder there, we literally have thousands of examples of similar types of girder bridges. It's not employing any sort of engineering that would be, considered pioneering in 1939. It considers the age, which, for a pre-war structure, I mean, we're right at the cutoff there. So, there's not a lot of bridges from this era unless they're, really spectacular that are going to be, because most of these, means and methods of the sort of bridge types of that era typically predate a bridge from 1939. And then, so there are several different categories, and I can kind of go through that. I haven't had a chance to really sit down and sort of score this bridge, but it's typically scored out of like, about 100, and a bridge that hits like 45 or so is going to be one that we consider as, potentially eligible. And that kind of goes to the SHPO. I wouldn't expect this bridge to score more than like a 20, to be honest with you guys. I'm just being completely honest. It doesn't really have anything architecturally unique or intriguing about it. I disagree that the engineering would be something that's unique or pioneering in 1939. So, and the size and scale of it, it's not a particularly tall bridge. It's not spanning a channel that would be, particularly difficult to get across. So, for all these reasons, I think this one is, in my opinion, it's pretty clear that this is an ineligible bridge to me, and that's the way that I would propose it to the SHPO. If you guys think if you guys disagree with my, professional opinion here, that would be our next step. We would take this bridge individually to the SHPO, but I'm telling you, I will recommend it to be not eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, because we see hundreds of examples of bridges like this all over the place. So, I mean, it's a lot of work on our end. I don't think it's necessarily a great use of state resources to be spending a lot of time individually assessing the historic significance of this bridge. But if you disagree, that's what this process is there for. So, that would be our next steps.
One more question. The cast in place reinforced concrete deck, does that span from rail to rail, the guardrail to guardrail, and essentially sit on the girders? There's nothing, no other system, is that from what I see of these photographs? That's a simple cantilever deck that spans between two girders. Is that correct?
I am not completely sure, to be honest with you.
Which would lead me to ask whether the guardrail, which is reinforced concrete, performs as a structural element to support the length of the deck along from deflection. So the whole issue of deflection is one I would say, and how deflection is addressed in structural design in this bridge is a pioneering exercise. I would disagree with you. Most structural design bridges was based on simple vertical loads and the analysis of vertical loads and dealing with vertical loads. Whereas the deflection, I should say bending stresses, the deflection criteria was becoming a new criteria for design, structural design, much more stringent than simple bending. But nevertheless, it was being integrated into the design of the bridge. And in this case, nicely integrated with the railing. and to enable the slab to span across the two girders. Just a point of information.
Noted. We will, any comments that the board has can be incorporated into any additional analysis that we need to perform on this bridge.
Great. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Witosh. Any other commissioner questions? We have one more, Commissioner Nye.
I appreciate the comments and the expertise of the Caltrans staff. And I guess my question is, we are being asked, and I don't know, Caltrans probably did not word our particular mission here, but it says we will review and vote that we agree or do not agree with Caltrans' determination that this particular bridge is.
It's a Caltrans determination with SHPO concurrence. I just want to point that out. SHPO
Yes.
has concurred that this bridge is ineligible.
Thank you. And what I'm saying is we're being asked to essentially do a assessment of this bridge kind of on the fly with what's in front of us on the screen. And my assumption is that's not how it's normally done. So is there additional information from your agency that could help us decide how to vote? Or
The only additional information that I was asked for previously was to provide how this determination was made, which was through the multiple property submission reports. I think I sent both the original one, which was done back in the 80s, that basically showed the methodology for evaluating a pre-war bridge, which this one falls under. There is another report, which is for bridges, I think, that are post-war. So I probably didn't send that because it doesn't apply to this bridge. You know, I can send that one too.
You did say that. I just didn't give it to the commissioner because I didn't feel it was valid for
Right.
the date period.
Right. So, so that kind of shows the work that has gone into, again, doing assessments of eligibility for bridges, again, in a statewide context. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of resources. We need some means by which to judge them because the simple haul of getting a determination of eligibility for every single bridge statewide, you know, we would be doing nothing else but historic research on bridges. So this kind of provides us a means to, you know, more elegantly, if you will, assess the potential historic significance for unremarkable bridges, of which I would say this one falls into. And, you know, it has been, again, looked at, you know, many times over the years. But, you know, as you point out, it's not it's not a specific evaluation for this exact bridge. It's within a statewide context. So, you know, an individual discussion of eligibility for this bridge has not been performed. Due to the fact that this project is removing the bridge, we've reached out to, you know, any potential interested in parties. So that includes commissioners, some of the local historical societies, the city of Lompoc, etc.
Okay, thank you for your response. I have no further questions.
Yeah, it's just a requirement on our end as part of the Section 106 process to seek your comment. I thought kind of the easiest way to do that would be a simple vote on whether the board agreed with the previous determination of ineligibility and that this resource does not appear to be to possess the qualities of National Register, which again is a high, it's a high bar, or not. And so again, the steps forward from that would be, if you guys don't agree, if the board does not agree, we will perform a more individual study on this particular bridge. My hunch would be that this is still an ineligible property, but we will have to take a lot more time and care and potential risk to the project schedule and all that to do that level of evaluation and seek SHPO concurrence on it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Leckey, for your
Thank you.
response. I have another question. Has it been determined that this bridge is structurally deficient or hydraulically deficient in terms of capacity to take water flow under height, in terms of heights and widths and so forth?
I think that's a Jen question. Jen, can you answer, has this bridge been determined structurally deficient or any of the other things the commissioners are asking?
Or functionally deficient?
Functionally.
Yes, it has been actually. It's slated to be replaced for multiple reasons. It's still proposed, of course, in preliminary design, but they propose to raise the height of the bridge to accommodate high floodwater hydraulic flows. So that's one of the primary flood concerns. They're also going to add better safety features, and through multiple community meetings, there's been community support to widen the bridge, to add multimodal transportation. So they're going to add bike lanes and pedestrian sidewalks. So it's all for improvement of community safety use, new up-to-date safety standards in the bridge design, and improve the flood flow height. So those are the reasons that I'm aware of. I'm not the design engineer, but that's what I can tell you about that.
I was afraid you'd say that.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, and I do believe that there are the safety concerns is a big one too. I think there have been some wrecks over time.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Witosh.
Mr.
Okay,
Chair?
let's move on. Did we do public comment yet? Did I ask for? Okay, let's ask for public comment.
If there's anybody in the comment, I'm sorry, if there's anybody in the chat that would like to make a public comment on this item, please raise your hand. Seeing none, and we have received no speaker slips.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to commissioner comments. You still have a question?
I still have a question, Mr.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
And it may be something that Mr. Lackey can answer very simply. To try and get a sense of the proportion of what we're doing here and the resource we're handling, we were given one sheet that says structure maintenance and investigations. And this is the one which actually has our San Ynez River Bridge 510128 listed way down at the bottom. And it lists it as bridge not eligible for NRHP. Now, this is obviously for District 5, and we have 43 bridges here, only one of which is listed as being eligible for NRHP. So I'm wondering, how many pages are there of bridges like this for District 5, or maybe Santa Barbara County, but you probably don't have it listed like that.
There are hundreds of pages.
Hundreds of pages.
Yeah, there are hundreds of pages.
So if we were to look closely enough, somewhere we'd find the Cold Spring Arch Bridge, and it would be listed as eligible for NRHP.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
If you want to see the list of any of the bridges that are eligible, I know of a few. I can go find them if you're questioning the accuracy of the survey. I mean, that's understandable, but yeah, I mean, we have a lot of bridges statewide that you may not even think of. Like a lot of them are hardly any bigger than a culvert, you know? So, you know, you see this long list of bridges that are ineligible, but think just about, and that includes like any, you know, highway, overcrossing, undercrossing, et cetera. So yeah, the lion's share of bridges on there are going to be ineligible because they're just a standard feature that's, you know, part of the freeway or something.
Okay, I just wanted to have that step back so we could sort of see the proportion in the bigger picture. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan. Okay, let's move on to comments. We are, you know, review your comments because we are being asked to vote whether it agrees with the Caltrans determination that this bridge is ineligible for National Register of Historic Places. So who would like to start on their comments?
This is why we get paid the big bucks, to make these really nasty decisions. Okay. I don't readily want to have to agree with Caltrans here. But they've given us this sort of criteria. And what we have to sort of remember here is these bridges are sort of like our bathrooms and kitchens. We try to save all these wonderful historic buildings, but we know the bathrooms and kitchens are not going to serve them in the long run, and we'll have to have some sort of changes to them. And when they tell us that, well, safety, and that is a really important consideration, safety is one of the main reasons why they're having to change this bridge, then we have to try and look at it from Caltrans's perspective. And I don't like the idea that they have a very simplified, streamlined assessment of what criteria might apply and what criteria wouldn't apply. And they're obviously dealing with infrastructure en masse. They're not trying to look at everybody's local bridge. We would love to have them look really carefully at everybody's local bridge. And in fact, we've called their attention to a bunch of them, and especially the old coast highway bridges that have needed to be replaced in some places and not in others. I have to say, if I use their criteria, then I have to agree with them. Now, Commissioner Whittosh may have a more refined view of this in that he's an engineer, and he thinks he sees a cutting edge technological advance potentially in the railing and how it provides rigidity to the concrete deck. I hope he is right. And I hope he's right. And it turns out that that's the case. But in the short run, I sort of feel I have to support Caltrans with the good news and the bad news. The good news is Caltrans actually brought this to us and asked our opinion. The bad news, is that we might have to agree with their opinion. And it could be that they could have just brought it as a fait accompli. And we don't want your personal comments because we know they will have personal affection and personal connection, which may distort your view as compared to our mission of providing safe transportation for the entire state. So my comment is that unfortunately, I feel like I have to agree with Caltrans in this respect with the information I have.
Okay, next, who would like to make a comment? Commissioner Watash.
Well, this would be the rebuttal comment. I agree and disagree with what Commissioner Duncan has just said. I guess I want it both ways. I would say I could not agree with Caltrans' determination that this bridge was ineligible. I think it is eligible. Whether it is designated or not is another step. I also understand that in the, let's see, 61 and 23 is, what is that, 84 years that this bridge has been around, that Lompoc has grown, changed, traffic patterns have changed, volumes have changed, environmental changes have occurred. I agree that the bridge probably needs to be replaced. I agree that probably we're not going to be able to keep this bridge, and I'm sorry about that. But it does not lead me to agree that this bridge is not eligible, is ineligible for a determination, whatever it is, ineligible for designation. So I just would like this bridge to be remembered, documented for what it is, it was. And I want to confess that I am on pins and needles knowing whether or not I'm right about the guardrail and so on and so forth. I did not go into a detailed investigation of the design of this bridge or even when the first Fearndale Truss was designed, which I think was a long time ago, but that the railing would be of that nature. So that being said, I probably am going to vote no on the vote. What is it that we're voting on? That the bridge is ineligible. I think it is eligible, but I will vote in support of the safety issues measures as being justification for replacing this bridge. I don't know whether I can have it both ways or not. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Watash. Commissioner Nye?
Yes, thank you. Those are comments from my fellow commissioners are very well stated, and I could not disagree with them in the least. I know that simply the very fact that there are thousands of bridges that have to be dealt with, it requires that an agency such as Caltrans has to develop shortcuts, as it were, and that's why the broad surveys are done periodically, where because they just don't have the budget or capability to do a decent historic structures report on every bridge. And they base these opinions on many, many years and high level of historical scholarship and methodology. And they bring those to bear in these situations. So I just don't like being in a position to have to agree or disagree on something's significance that has not had some good old-fashioned historical research specific to that facility, to that bridge. So Caltrans has the best information at the moment and the best experience, and so I will probably, since we, I guess, are required to vote, will either abstain or vote in favor of ineligibility. Thanks.
Any other commissioner comments? No? Well, I'll just wrap up here before we hopefully have a motion. First of all, I always like to want to thank Caltrans for taking the time to come to us to get our opinion on this, and not just this, but other bridges that they have come to us in the past for. I think it's important that the state realizes the historic natures of all of our infrastructure, houses, bridges, whatever, that, we were being asked for our opinion. With the documentations that I have, I agree that, with Caltrans that this bridge doesn't meet, as I see it, as criteria A and criteria C. So I'm in favor of supporting the ineligible or a national historic registry of historic places for the bridge. So if there's no other comments, does someone want to do a motion for the vote?
Question for Mr. Leckey, if he's still on the line?
Yes, sir, still here.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, in the event that the commission simply fails to vote on this theoretical motion today, okay, what will Caltrans's actions be going forward?
We could just document that you didn't vote on it. I guess it's not a requirement. It was sort of an idea I cooked up myself. And we would just document the basically the coordination that happened between Caltrans and the commission. And I think I would move forward with the previous determination. So I guess with the absence of a vote, I would move forward with the information that we had. If you all voted and it came up that the majority of you felt that you disagreed with our opinion, then I think it would probably have to trigger some additional studies on our end, which would be, really, really time consuming, but that's part of our job. So, if that's something that needs to happen, then it's understandable. It's going to be a risk probably to the project, to its schedule and its funding mechanisms, but that's part of the environmental review process. I kind of didn't necessarily, I expected this to go probably a little bit more smoothly, but I understand that for some of you in the commission, it's like, a local resource and a bridge that's, been part of your lives for a long time, and maybe there's an emotional connection to that. So I totally understand that. So it's, but yeah, that's probably next steps at this point. Lack of a vote. I'm not going to say that you concurred with us. I'll mention that we had the meeting, we had the discussion, and you chose not to render an opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan. I think Commissioner Snow?
I'll make a motion that the County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission has reviewed and agrees with Caltrans' determination that the bridge is ineligible for the National Register of Historic Places.
We do have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Commissioner Duncan, second the motion. Any discussion? Okay, let's do a roll call vote on this one.
Discussion.
A discussion, okay.
Yeah. Is it possible for Caltrans to share any photographs that they have of this bridge with our commission so that we can maintain a file of this going forward? Just for the record.
Yeah,
Again,
absolutely. I took a bunch of photos out there in the field shortly after. So the photos that I shared with you were from our maintenance database. It's a database that has photos and information about all the bridges. So that's the information I shared with you. I took some better ones. I mean, I personally think they're better. I think I'm a better photographer than the maintenance person that was out there a few years ago. So I can share those. I mean, we can go back into the field at some point. It may be me. This project may change hands to somebody else. But that's an option, and get some more photos, and do some, level of documentation, kind of memorializing this bridge. If it would be kind of a more informal sort of thing, but I'm willing to explore that.
Let me
We can
amend my
kind of continue the
motion
conversation.
and include that Caltrans will provide the Historic Landmarks Commission with photographs to document the bridge.
Yeah, that sounds great. I have some, and if there are any other angles, it's a little tricky getting down there. Safety is an issue, but if there's any angles that you guys want to see that are feasible, reasonable to do, certainly open to that.
Okay,
Much appreciated. And so just for my perspective, facing the inevitable that the bridge is going to be replaced for many, many engineering reasons, by the way, safety, water, everything. I'm going to vote in favor because of the condition that was added that we get photo documentation and any other, if you have record plans or whatever, that would be great as well. And thank you for that, Mr. Leckie.
We may have a lot more in the records. Usually there are many dozens of pages about the bridges in the BIRIS, which is the bridge inventory system. So I'll certainly look through that and give you any kind of historical anything I can share. Some of it is proprietary, but anything that I can share, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
okay, we have a motion on the floor. Okay. So we'll do a roll call vote, and we'll start to my left with Commissioner Knight. Yeah, it was seconded. So Commissioner Knight on the motion?
Aye.
Commissioner Nye?
Reluctantly, and I would appreciate it if the Mr. Leckie does go back into the archives, because the Caltrans has massive archives on all of its bridges, and provide some of those historic photos and other documents. Thank you.
Commissioner Snow?
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman-Gray? Aye. Commissioner Malcolm?
Abstain.
Commissioner Duncan?
Reluctantly, aye.
And Commissioner Witash?
Also reluctantly, aye.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Mr. Leckie, for being here today, because I know it was a little difficult.
Yeah, just a doctor's appointment. No, thank you all for your time today. I appreciate you as always. And so just to recap, can we get just like a formal letter sort of memorializing the vote, and then also include in there anything that you want to see from me. It's a little bit informal, but I really appreciate the relationship that we've been able to cultivate over the last couple of years on some bigger projects, and I would be glad to take a little bit of time out of my day to satisfy any of those requests. So yeah, please include that.
We will do. I will send a letter too. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, we have in one item. Do you want to take a quick 10-minute break, a real quick break before we go on to the next item? So it is 12:22. So please be back here by 12:35 at the latest. Thank you. Thank you all for coming back so promptly. The standard agenda. This is a Moody Sisters cottage demolition. This is a continuation from 8/14/2023 and 9/11/2023. The County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will review and provide comments on the unpermitted demolition of historic landmark number 50, the Moody Sisters Cottage. The property is a 1.01 acre parcel, Zone 2E1, and shown as Assessor's Parcel number 009-170-028, located at 170 Middle Road in the Montecito Community Plan area, the first supervisor district. In addition, according to Section 18A of the County Code, the HLAC is charged with the responsibility for the enforcement of the provisions of Chapter 18A and all conditions imposed thereunder. If unable otherwise to obtain compliance with the provisions of Chapter 18A and conditions imposed thereunder, it may refer the matter to the Board of Supervisors or the District Attorney or the County Council for appropriate action. The HLAC will consider and determine whether and how to make any such referrals pertaining to the demolition of County Landmark number 50. So I want to just start today, just kind of a background. We've had 2 meetings now about this. At our last meeting on September 11th, we came to a consensus that some action needs to be done. And we all decided that we need to take action. So today, I'd like to move forward and maybe decide what we want to do. I'm going to first read a little background. And on March 4th, 2014, Santa Barbara County Historic Landmark number 50, located at 170 Middle Road in Montecito, California, was designated by the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors as a County of Santa Barbara Historic Landmark. On July 4th weekend, 2023, Santa Barbara County Historic Landmark number 50 was demolished by the property owner, and all materials were removed from the property. 3, Santa Barbara County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission did not receive an application for demolition from the property owner as part of the condition in the County of Santa Barbara Board of Supervisors resolution, landmarking historic landmark 50 before the structure was demolished. And that's item 2.A in the resolution. 4, the owner of historic landmark number 50 did not receive express consent from the HLAC before demolition of the landmark. 5, the owner of historic landmark 50 did not obtain a demolition permit from the County of Santa Barbara before County of Santa Barbara landmark number 50 was demolished. As stated in our agenda item, if unable to attain compliance with the provisions of County Code Section 18A and all provisions of the chapter and conditions imposed hereunder, it may refer the matter to the following: as stated in our agenda item, we could refer this to the County Board of Supervisors. We can refer it to County Council, or we can refer it to the District Attorney. We can do one, we could do two, we could do all three of these. We can also ask board, this can also be can be done in the form of a letter to one of these or all of these. And we can also request planning development if they want to bring forth the agenda to the board. So we've already been established that we can send a letter to two or three of these. And it has also been mentioned that we can put in direction in this letter. So I'm going to read potential directions. These were all discussed at our last meeting on September 11th. So they are in our minutes. And so I just pulled these from our minutes and a little more concise so that you'll have an idea of what, if you want to, we don't have to put these in the letter. So one is asked to have Santa Barbara County landmark number 50 rebuilt by the owner. Precedent. There's the Corta Bunkhouse at 4030 Corta Road in Santa Barbara, California. This bunkhouse on March 9th, 1998 was designated County of Santa Barbara Structure of Merit. On May 5th of 1998, the Corta Bunkhouse was demolished. On October 5th, 2012, the Corta Bunkhouse was rebuilt. It was, the county made it be rebuilt. So there is precedent to have it rebuilt by the owner. This is something that could be or not put in the letter. Two, the fine owner the cost to rebuild historic land number 50 plus penalties for no permits to demolish structure. We discussed this at the last meeting. What if we do that, if this by any chance happens, funds to be used as grants to be distributed by HLAC for historic projects in the county of Santa Barbara. Grants could fund an exhibit at a local museum, documentation of other Moody sister cottages, similar to grants given by Fish and Wildlife Commission. The Fish and Wildlife Commission does give out grants based on fines that they receive on their commission. We also discussed, it was in our minutes, fine the contractor that demolished the landmark that without making sure there was a permit to demolish that landmark. And that was something that was discussed. Or we don't include anything in the letter. We just send a letter to which of the three that we want to. So that is how I wanted to start this out today. Now I know the owner is online, and we want to give a lot of deference to the owner to be able to say what she wants or whoever it is. And it will be during public comment. So I just want to make this clear that the owner of the property will be able to speak. It'll be during public comment. But I will be very deferential to not have a set time limit because this is a very important issue here that we're talking about. So I guess the first thing we always do is any ex parte, any site visits from any of the commissioners today since the last time we met? None? Okay. So I guess we could start with any questions. We'll start with questions on what I just started out with as a groundwork for this. Oh, we also, just to know, we do have him in the audience here today, Planning Development. We have John Zorovich. He is the planner and is also handling this. Maybe we should ask John first if you want to say a few words, what's going on at Planning Development. And thank you for coming in person. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So I'm John Zorovich. Thank you for the introduction. I manage the code enforcement program for planning and development. And so I just wanted to give you a brief, kind of report on where the code enforcement program is and the status. So last month, we issued the property owner, it was on October 31st, a notice of violation. And the violation was for demolishing the cottage and failure to obtain obtaining the obtaining a coastal development permit to allow for the work and a building permit. And we also identified that the demolition of the structure was in conflict with a previous coastal development permit in the project description where it mentioned that there would be no exterior alterations to the Moody Cottage. So we issued that notice of violation, or we sent it out end of October. My staff has had some conversations with the property owner. We're setting up a meeting to talk about potential abatement options. I don't know what those are yet, and I think probably looking to see what your commission will be, direction you'll be giving on what your preference is. But I just wanted to give you a brief status that that's where the code enforcement program is that we have issued a notice of violation to the property owner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zorvich. Any commissioner questions to how we're going to proceed or to Mr. Zorvich? Okay, well, I know Commissioner Duncan.
Hi, can you guys hear me? It's Lori Corson, but I don't hear anybody speaking. Are the mics working?
We're just waiting for him to get his computer up.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Good. Okay, so we can hear. You can
Okay,
hear
great.
us.
Okay, I'll unmute myself.
Yeah, we took a pause because his computer just crashed, so we thought we'd wait.
Okay, thanks for the explanation.
Okay, so we're into questions, and we had Commissioner Malcolm has a question.
Oh, as far as the notice was concerned, was there any type of penalties there, or just a noticing that we acknowledge that something has happened and wait for further notice, or how does that work?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, good question. So this notice of violation did not identify any fines or penalties at this time, and that's common. Typically, for a notice of violation, there's a period of time to correct if there is a violation that's been determined. And so really right now, we have not identified anything. It doesn't mean that we can't in the future. However, so far, the property owner seems to be willing to cooperate and has wanted to reach out to staff and have a meeting. Like I said, we have a meeting later this week. So no fines have been identified yet.
And no course of action has been discussed yet, or?
No, not at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Malcolm. Commissioner Wittosh, questions?
Is there any documentation that exists on this house plans, photos, anything?
I believe Commissioner Nye can answer that since he did a historic report.
This would be what was originally built.
There is, in the public record, yes, floor plans and that sort of thing. Yes.
Elevations by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
No.
It's
Mhm.
been answered.
I just don't know whether they exist as part of the commission files.
Would they exist as part of the designation as a structure of merit or whatever it was?
Possibly, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, before we move on, let's go to public comment. And this is the time for, is it Lori? Lori
Yes,
Colson?
yes, Lori
So
Corson.
this is your time. They'll let you, speak and go right ahead.
Great. Okay, first of all, I want to give a huge shout out to David Villalobos and Jonathan Martin, who have been so patient with me and all of my records requests and which have been quite educational, but they've been awesome. So thank you, David and Jonathan. But there's some of the information I requested through the document, the public records documents request they're not available as documents, but can only be answered by some of the board members. And others only by Ron Nye. So I respectfully request that I be able to ask some questions of the board members directly. May I do that?
Sorry, County Council you want to answer that?
That's not the normal process. This is just a time for public comment.
Okay, I'm going to make my comments I'm going to make my questions in the form of public comments. I'm going to have to do it that way. So, I'm going to assume, I believe that only Ron Nye and Howard Wittosh were on the board when it was designated a Moody Cottage. And I'm also going to assume that none of the board members have ever seen the Moody Cottage in person. Ron said he saw it on Google Earth back, I don't know when he saw it, but I just looked at Google Earth and the Moody Cottage is still on my property on Google Earth. So Google Earth is not updated. And I tried to even shoot into the Moody Cottage to see it, and it couldn't see the rotted floors, the flooding, the rat infestation, the broken roof, whatever. So that Google Earth thing, I don't know. I'm also going to take great exception to Ron's stance that the board appeared that there was precedence about rebuilding a historic landmark or something that was deemed historic. The bunkhouse was a completely different set of facts. With the bunkhouse, the property owners tore the bunkhouse down because they wanted to build their primary residence on the property. County went scorched earth on them, wouldn't grant a building permit to build their house unless they rebuilt the bunkhouse. So that's the only reason why the historic structure was rebuilt, only so that the owners could get a building permit. That's not the same situation here. So like I said, I take a great offense to you saying that that is a precedent for what's going on here because the facts are very different. Also, I'm not sure how many of you board members know, but just before Ron Nye is the one who did the report that named the cottage historic, that was adopted historic, but 2 months before Ron did his whole report, his whole study, Shelley Bookspan, another historian, did the same exact review of the Moody Cottage to see if it met the requirements for designation as historic. And she said unequivocally, no. There might be some items that were maybe significant, but on the whole, when she looked at it, the cottage should not be designated historic. 2 or 3 months later, Ron Nye did a report, same exact cottage, same exact conditions, and he said that it should be deemed historic. So I just don't understand what the difference was. So it seems very subjective because in 2 months' time, nothing changed with the cottage, nothing became more historic, more significant, yet Dr. Nye, Ron said that it was. So I have a little problem with that. Also, we've talked about demolition by neglect. As your county council told you and reminded you that HLAC may require owners of an historic structure or someone who has an historic structure on their property to maintain the designated historic structure. The owners are not required to maintain it unless directed to by HLAC, who I said does have the power to require that. When I spoke with Ron several times, and even Ron admitted in one of the previous meetings, he told me I did not have to maintain it. So I did not maintain it. And again, it became demolition by neglect, which by definition is allowing a building to deteriorate to the point that demolition becomes necessary. So if HLAC didn't want it to be demolition by neglect, they should have required us to maintain it. Also, I'm not sure if you're all familiar with this, but in my documents request, Ron said the Moody Cottage that was at 170 Miller Road was the only Moody Cottage of the 35 Moody cottages in Santa Barbara County that was designated historic. I'm not sure if you were all familiar with that, because when I spoke with planning and development, they were shocked when they heard that. So again, if this was the only Moody Cottage that was designated historic, and it was so important and such a significant representation of this particular kind of architecture, why wouldn't HLAC have required us to maintain it as they had the power to do? They didn't. So the Moody Cottage, we did nothing to it, and it became so dilapidated, like I said, infested with vermin. It flooded, the roof had holes in it, the windows were broken, that the fire marshal, when he came to inspect our ADU and the fire sprinklers in our accessory dwelling unit, he offered to have his firefighters come and do training exercises on the Moody Cottage because he thought it would be great to set it on fire or to tear it down or axe it or do whatever. I said I couldn't do it. He said it was a fire hazard. I asked him to write a letter for the board explaining this. I take great offense to Mr. Wittosh's intimation that we somehow snuggled up to the fire marshal. You said it on 2 occasions that we just got him to write a letter because people in Montecito can do that. That's not how it happened. It was a fire hazard. And Mr. Kaufman-Gray, as you know, homeowners insurance, the homeowners insurers can deny you insurance on your property if they perceive a potential hazard. You said yourself that you had to tear down a tree because your homeowners insurance wouldn't renew your policy. Our homeowners insurance wouldn't renew our policy because we had this fire hazard on our property. So that was a big deal. I do not deny that we tore it down. I tore it down. We did not have a contractor. It was me in the bulldozer. And so I just don't understand how, I understand that you're upset that we demolished it, but you can't pursue us for HLAC's oversight and HLAC's failure to require us to maintain the cottage. HLAC didn't require us. If it was important, they had the power to require us to maintain it. They did not direct us to maintain it. In fact, like I said, Ron told us we didn't. He told me straight out, Laura, you do not have to maintain it. You can let that thing fall apart. You can let it cave in. And I followed his directions. So maybe you should, going forward, adopt some resolutions regarding maintenance of historic structures, but you can't punish me now for having a cottage that totally fell into disrepair because I wasn't required to maintain it. Also, I'm talking to John Zorovich of Planning and Development on, I believe, John, it's Wednesday or Thursday. We have that time set up. There are some other things that I did discover during my records requests, and I might have to discuss this with City Council, and I'm going to talk to this with John. HLAC has very specific notice requirements that they must give out when they have public hearings. And some of the documents that I received were undated, unsigned, that notice was sent out, and there are no documents at all. I've requested 10 times, 15 times that any notice was given out for the March hearing when the HLAC voted on the resolution to name this Moody Cottage as historic. They were supposed to send out notice to all property owners within 300 feet of the property. They were supposed to put a notice in the newspaper. They were supposed to notice affected utilities, and they failed to do so. So that's something I'm going to talk to John about on Wednesday. Again, council might want to review that. But I guess that's really it. Again, I don't deny that I didn't get a permit. I don't deny that I tore it down, but I maintain that I was scared it was gonna set the whole neighborhood on fire. Fire marshal agreed with that, and it was falling apart, and I wasn't required to maintain it, so I didn't. I guess that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your comments. I just want to let everyone know at this time that County Council Ann Ryerson had to leave for another meeting. So we have in her place Kelly Kim. Thank you, Kelly, for being here. So she can answer any of our questions if we have any for the rest of this meeting. So we can move on to, was there any more, I'm sorry, was there any more public comments?
Lori was the only one that raised her hand, and we have no request to speak at this time.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So I had an introduction of this meeting today. Today, we're going to decide where we want to send this. I laid it out just to go over it. The referral to county council, referral to county board of supervisors, a referral to county council, referral to district attorney. We could do 1, 2, or 3. We could do a combination, board of supervisors with help from county council. We could do district attorney with help from county council, or do all 3. I mentioned what we could put in the letter. So this is, I guess, comment time. So I want to hear where you are feeling on this issue. And I don't know who wants to be the first one on this to speak, because it is a lot to decide on. Any takers first?
A point of clarification.
Commissioner Knight. Oh, go ahead, clarification.
Yeah, on the resolution for the cottage, as the owners listed as Mr. and Mrs. David, Posnick or Posnick. It's a different last name from Lori's that I've got.
Yeah, the timeline, the property was sold after it was designated, and so this is a new property owner.
Okay.
It was designated a historic landmark under a previous property owner.
So when did Lori come to own the property?
August of 2015.
Yeah, here's.
Okay.
Somewhere around then.
A little over a year and a half or so. Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we'll start with Commissioner Knight.
My opinion is that we should refer it to everyone that we can, along with a letter. And I think also the public comments of the owner, the couple of times that she's been with us. Forward all of that to the 3 entities that you mentioned. Thanks.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Witosh, would you like to make your comments now?
I concur with that suggestion, but I do have some comments. So in teasing this whole thing apart, I think there are legal issues, and I think there are commission issues, ordinance questions, procedures, permitting policies, and so forth. I would like someone to come to the idea that we have 2 different issues, legal issues and then procedural issues. I don't wish to become involved in a legal discussion about he said, she said, and this is what that, and I did it, and contractors and this and so on. I don't want to, I don't know how to go there. But I do think that as a commission, we should look at our own process. We should look at our own language of our ordinance. We should look at whether what happened was in fact due to oversight on our part, or whether it was due to some kind of criminal negligence on the part of the owner. And I laugh because it's to be determined. I'm not saying that. So I would like to kind of bifurcate the So that means referring to district attorney, county council, and to perhaps the Board of Supervisors, all three.
Yeah, as far as the legality part, that can be determined later after who we refer it to. And if there's those questions, and with planning development can sort that out. And there are some things that might down the road that we have to do. But I think right now, what we're determining is where we want to send this on, as per our purview and our bylaws.
So this is going to sound terrible, but I don't want to be involved in fines and imprisonment and determining things like that. Right. That is not what our purview is. Punishments.
Okay, it looks like Commissioner Malcolm.
Yeah, I kind of agree with but however, we do need a clear and strong stance to suggest to these three entities if we referred this to them as what we would like or expect or what should be done about it rather than leave it to them, because they may not have the understanding of historic context of why this is moving forward the way it will be. So I don't want to just refer it to these three entities and say, hey, you handle it, rather than, well, then what will they do? You know, they need some kind of context as to why we're forwarding it to them.
And that is kind of what I asked at the beginning,
Right.
if we want to add suggestions into this letter. And so far, it looks like it's all three that we're doing. Commissioner Snow? Okay, Commissioner Snow.
I know that we need to set some standard in order to discourage future intentional destruction of a historical landmark. But I also think we'll have some issues with litigation and, well, not, problems. It's not the preferable way. And I don't know if the DA or county council or the Board of Supervisors really want to head that direction. I think settlement would be preferable, especially if the owner is now negotiating with, P&D, correct? And they're going to have a meeting later this week. Perhaps the owner might propose a settlement. I think some kind of a settlement would be preferable than to really push, because I'm not sure what would happen. But I would encourage some sort of mediation, arbitration, something that they work with the property owner. And I did like when you were talking about some of the possible solutions would be, one of them was to have a fine, or could be the property owner could volunteer to donate a certain sum that would lead to, so that the Moody Sisters buildings, other edifices here in the town could be documented, and maybe work with the historical museum and do some, maybe a future project solely on, I know they've done some in the past, but some way that you could educate the public about it, because if they're not already landmarks, perhaps it would encourage other owners to dedicate some to landmark some of their structures. It would be kind of an education. That's just my opinion. If we could try, to work, and I think you have an appointment, and I think we'll learn more when you go, when you actually meet with the property owner and maybe negotiate something rather than hitting them with all three barrels. But I do think we need to really establish what we're going to do in the future to prevent this from happening again. And it may be wording, it may, of our resolutions, and I think that we would want to work with county council to really improve our wording. That's my thought.
Let's see what other comments we can go swing back. I want to make sure everyone, Commissioner Duncan.
Mr. Chair, thank you. One note before I talk about the general issue. the property owner made a great deal of discussion about maintenance and saying that we can require maintenance. I think that's somewhat of a distortion of the way our bylaws and Chapter 18A reads. The actual specific reference to maintenance that I think they're referring to is under places of historic merit. It's not under landmark to begin with. And it says the Historic Landmark Advisory Commission may require maintenance of the premises as a condition for continued recognition of the historic merit of the premises. And the maintenance, I think this really is talking about is the maintenance of the historic integrity, that we would want them to maintain their integrity sufficiently so that if they did not, we wouldn't want them to be a historic merit. And in fact, we've taken action in that regard when a property owner did change their structure so much that it no longer had its historic integrity. And in fact, there's all kinds of language in here that basically says we can't impose things that were too expensive to do, that would keep them from being able to use their property. So I would just point out, and I'm sure County Council is noticing this, that interpretation of our ability to require maintenance is somewhat distorted. In terms of what we should do at this point, I think the logical thing is to refer it to both the Board of Supervisors and County Council. And certainly a form of a letter makes sense. I think that letter might contain some things that the Board of Supervisors and Council might find interesting. Obviously, some sort of timeline, which shows the important dates, and it shows the repeated attempts to support moving the cottage. And obviously, that shows that the current owner bought after the property was landmarked. And then I think another thing we should include is what we think are precedents, such as the bunkhouse, and then just some general ideas in terms of things that actions or funding might be directed towards. And those are the exhibits or documentation, et cetera, those sort of things. But I would really only put those out as, options and ideas, that we don't see that necessarily as a solution. I think we do have to tell the Board of Supervisors that we hope they will impose a penalty sufficient to deter the demolition of other historic landmarks in the future. I mean, that's the flat out bottom line here, not only for us to fulfill our mission, but to protect the county's historic resources.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Duncan. Commissioner Nye?
Thank you. Commissioner Duncan took the words right out of my mouth. I agree with virtually everything he said. And I too would support sending this letter to the Board of Supervisors and the County Council. I'm personally not clear on the roles of all three of those particular agencies. I would assume that anything that goes to the Board of Supervisors would end up with the County Council. But since we do have a representative here from the legal department, could you fill us in on what roles are played by those departments?
Sure, I'm happy to answer that question. I'm Callie Kim. I'm happy to be here filling in for Ms. Ryerson. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the easiest one is the district attorney, who would be in charge of any criminal penalties. And I think you're right that any item that is brought to the Board of Supervisors would be considered by County Council, and we would kind of weigh in and evaluate the various options for the board to consider. And in all likelihood, anything that County Council determined it was able to do would likely also need to be taken to the board for consideration determination. It would probably depend on what exactly we're looking at as a possible solution. But sending a letter to both County Council and the Board of Supervisors would certainly be fine, and there would be some overlapping kind of jurisdiction and coordination. Does that answer your question?
I think so. So the district attorney would get involved if it were considered a criminal action, criminal.
So I guess my question is, if it was sent to supervisors, being as chair, I hope with help of county council to write this letter, make sure I have it right. But then supervisors could decide if it needs to go to district attorney for criminal prosecution. So that way we wouldn't really have to send it to district attorney. They would make that determination at the board level. Is that the way I understand it?
I think either option is probably on the table based on the language of the ordinance. I
Okay.
think you have the power to directly
Go directly
request that
to
the
them.
district attorney look into this, and it would be up to the district attorney to decide whether to pursue misdemeanor charges. You could also, in your letter to the board, suggest that they consider referring the matter to the district attorney. I don't think that that would be a problem. So either way would be acceptable.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that was perfectly fine. And thank you for that explanation. And I just wanted to add that I also, having said all of that, agree wholeheartedly with my fellow commissioner next door to me that anything that can be achieved from a negotiations and discussions perspective would certainly be welcome and be a lot less work, frustration. So thank you.
So Commissioner Ratash, you said you had a follow-up.
Going back to what Commissioner Snow was suggesting about mediation, arbitration, and so on, the thought of bargaining chips comes to mind. And so we lost a historic landmark, and it would be in our interest to somehow regain that historic landmark. But in regaining it, there's been discussion about requiring the owner to rebuild it. So as an alternative to the owner rebuilding this, the question is where maybe there is someone who would be interested in undertaking a project to rebuild this Moody Cottage on their property somewhere in Oxnard or North County or whatever. And as long as it was acceptable, that it would be that reconstruction on some other property. And the cost of reconstruction the property that is going to receive this cottage may have an interest in building an ADU or something on their own property, and they would be doing that in any case. And it may be that they could kill two birds with one stone, share the cost or whatever. I'm just putting this out there as a point of bargaining with the owner, or however that works. That's a suggestion.
Everyone's made their comments. Guess I'll make my comment. I agree with, the consensus I hear is we definitely want to do an action. Sounds like sending the letter to the Board of Supervisors, County Council, District Attorney. I think the majority, I like the idea of the Board of Supervisors and County Council and get their help to help draft this letter to make sure we have all of our T's and everything I's dotted correctly. referring it to the Board of Supervisors. I think we should put the suggestions in the letter concerning the options that we kind of are going. There's two. I mean, it's up to the Board of Supervisors. The reason why I'm saying Board of Supervisors is because they're the ones that adopted the resolution. They're the ones, their signatures are on this resolution as a Board of Supervisors. So I think it's appropriate for them to make that decision with our direction where we would like to go. And I think we have a couple of options here that they could both be in the letter saying, well, this is one option. The one is the rebuild. The two is fines for historic process. And these can all be in that letter. And then they can decide what to do at the board level. And as far as these penalties, and that's out of our purview, and let them decide. And I personally think let them decide it needs to go to the district attorney, but that's just my personal. I maybe will go back around to see if everyone wants a separate letter to district attorney, but I kind of think that if we send everything to them, since they created the resolution to begin with, they signed off on it, that with our suggestions, let them decide, what to do going forward. And so that's how I'm feeling right now. But I would like to know about the district attorney thing, if it should be a separate letter to district attorney. Go ahead, Commissioner Knight.
I think it's a stronger statement if we send it to all three. And I think we all feel strongly about this. So that's my take. We do the most that we can and get it out to the people in charge and let them decide.
So if we do a letter, I mean, we're doing 3 separate letters. Is it originally addressed to supervisor, then CC district attorney and CC county council, or have each one addressed separately? But then I'm afraid, would they know that they're the lead one that we're asking them to do something?
Chair?
Yes.
I would not want to be in the position of writing any letter about anything that is legal, because this is not what we're good at.
Right.
And I would rather be advised by our own county council. You can say this, but you can't say that, and this is what we.
Well, that's definitely, I said,
That's what you're.
yeah, that's I'm going. I would,
I would.
Ann Ryerson is like my, to make sure we do everything correctly. I don't want anything.
I would support that action to prepare a letter to the board and to the county council, and maybe in our letter, pose the question. If there is anything that is in a legal matter in this, would you please give us an opinion or refer this to the district attorney at your discretion, or, if you think it's right? I would not like to get into the legal stuff. It's very sticky. We don't know that much.
Okay. Commissioner Knight, does that sound to you, or do you still feel you
I
want to?
still feel the way that I stated previously, because it's in our charter, right? That these are the 3 actions that we can take. And just to me, I don't know if it's the right message if we're not going all in.
Any other commissioners weighing in?
I'll weigh in again.
Commissioner Snow.
I do think that we should send it to the board, and possibly with the county council, and maybe copy the DA, but I think it is going to be the board. But I also want to give the owner encouragement to find ways herself to ameliorate it. So rather than getting totally oppositional right up front, we do need to go to the board and say doing this. But if we go to the district attorney, that is, as she said, a misdemeanor. That's more in the criminal line. I think that would discourage cooperation and make it, everybody would lawyer up and it would get positional, and then the county might not want to expend the funds on this. So there must be a way that we can work, and really, because I do think we have to strongly discourage any future intentional destruction. That's the thing, intentional. I mean, there is going to be accidental. And as to what the property owner said, I think there's an implication in our a resolution that we did send to the board when it said, except as set forth, no alterations, addition, and changes. And then in parentheses, other than normal maintenance and repair, that's an implication that normal maintenance and repair will be performed. So that her argument there may be weak, but I'm saying this is all going to like legal argument. We have to say and this is our intent by doing this, is to prevent future intentional destruction of, and we will kind of say that to the board, but I think we have to be, clear, but I also think we have to have the ability to negotiate some kind of amelioration on behalf of the owner. Otherwise, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, when you start a whole legal thing and you're asking the board to do it and they're going to factor in expenses and all this, I mean, it would be really handy to state that we feel really strongly and this is what we intend, that to prevent this in the future. And how can we remedy it? We're talking remedies here. If you start going totally to the district attorney, you're talking, are you going to, litigate, or how is it going to be heard? That could be some problems. But I do think we have to, we all feel very strongly about this demolition. And we have to, really be focused and not just emote, emote about it, but we have to be really directed. And I'd be willing to work with you, Keith, and council, and to try to figure out really how to word this to the board that isn't going to, discourage them doing anything because possible expense, or encourage the property owner to not try to work with us. And that's just my thoughts. But I do think we have to notify the board. And that's our job. We serve on behalf of, we've been appointed by the board. So we should take direction too also from them. So.
Thank you so much,
So
Commissioner
far.
Snow. I'm kind of getting input on the district attorney is kind of what we're still going on. So Commissioner Duncan?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm not comfortable with us directly referring this to the district attorney. I think it's certainly a decision that the Board of Supervisors can make. And I know when this goes to the Board of Supervisors, County Council will be providing this paragraph, enforcement of chapter, which directly refers to our responsibility to enforce the provisions and our options to direct it to the board, council, or district attorney. They'll see it, and they obviously already know that they can obviously refer things to the district attorney when it's appropriate. So I think it's better for us to stick first with the Board of Supervisors and County Council, and it does not preclude the board's option to go ahead and send it to the district attorney.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan. Any commissioners want to add to that? Okay, so as chair, I'm looking at a consensus here that we will be sending a letter. We will send it to the County Board of Supervisors and County Council with help from County Council to help draft this letter. And we will go over in the letter, we'll mention kind of what I stated at the beginning of this meeting, the background. It was a landmark that was made on March 4th, 2014. On July 4th weekend, 2023, the landmark was destroyed. And then the different things that did not happen. One, a building permit was not obtained for the demolition. The owner did not HLAC did not receive an application for demolition from the property owner as is needed. And the owner of the Historic Landmark 50 did not receive express consent from HLAC for the demolition of the landmark. So I'll make sure all of those are in the beginning of the letter. And then we'll refer to them. And I'm looking at a consensus that we do want to put in some suggestions to the Board of Supervisors. They're not in stone, but there's a couple of options that we've all have talked about. And one is the possibility of rebuilding it. We don't know if it's feasible, but that's a possibility because we do I believe we have precedent of the county making that happen in the past. And then, or if not, if it's not feasible, then some kind of a fine, which at that time, I would think supervisors could ask the district attorney to look into that. But we could ask for this fines for, like we mentioned in past discussions, the cost of rebuilding the structure and whatever fines for the violations of demolishing a historic landmark without a permit. I mean, I'll put those suggestions in the letter. Again, it will be working with county council to make sure we do everything properly. And that is what we will do. There's no vote on this, it's just by consensus. Okay, so that ends this agenda item. And
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, one little, I think that's a very good statement of what this letter needs to have. But I think one thing you might do is that the letter needs to state our feeling that the board needs to impose a penalty sufficient to deter future demolition of historic landmarks.
Right.
And then in terms of the specifics, the specifics of the fine or what the fine might be used of, et cetera, I might put that in a separate sheet and just point, that these are ideas that have been discussed. Because first of all, you want the board to agree on what's in the letter. Don't let them get bogged down in the details too quickly, where there may be some disagreement about what's first that. You want them to act first with the most important thing.
I think everyone on the commission here, I've seen we all want strong action is what I see from all of you here. And so I want to make sure that letter is going to be a very strong statement, when we send it to the Board of Supervisors.
Words person. So intentional demolition, very good. And intentional could be going out with a bulldozer and just knocking a thing down. But also intentional demolition by reason of willful negligence should be mentioned in words.
I'm glad you mentioned that because it will be in the minutes, and I'll be working with county council, so we'll make sure that we have a lot of those.
Also known as criminal negligence.
We'll have that in the letter. Okay, and thank you all for all your comments on this. It's one of these things that we don't like to see come in front of us. So our next meeting is December 11th, 2023. Your agenda has a wrong meeting place. It will be it's scheduled upstairs in the Board of Supervisors room. That was just, and unless for some reason it is not ready by then, but it looks like it will be finished. So we'll be meeting upstairs in the Board of Supervisors room on the 4th floor. So as of that, I adjourn this meeting for November 13th.